I call committee of the whole on Bill 29. So my apologies. Flip that a bit. Management Amendment Act to order. Shall we? Oh, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will be tabling an amendment in my name to Section 3, and I will provide a copy if I can figure this out.
I shall call recess for committee. I call a committee of the whole on Bill 29, Environmental Management Amendment Act, back to order. Members, we have an amendment on Clause 3, recognizing the minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. When we last were in Committee of the Whole on this bill, the member for Kelowna Mission raised some questions around accountable person for costs, if there is a default on costs. And we had a discussion about whether that could include employees of the owner or operator who can be a responsible person for other purposes. And my response was that we would address that by regulation. The intention of Bill 29 has always been to focus on facility owners or persons with legal or beneficial interests in the profits resulting from activities, not on employees who are simply carrying out their duties. But I take the member's point that it was not clear in the legislation, and for people to wait for regulatory clarity was not helpful and could cause concern. I thought about it. We discussed it internally and decided we agree with the member's point, and I want to thank the member for making the point, which leads us to the amendment to Clause 3, which I will now clarify. In Clause 3, in Section 91.82, we add the words, "The following are not responsible persons: the government, an employee of a responsible person if the employee has no legal or beneficial interest in the profits resulting from activities taking place at the facility, and a person excluded by regulation." And then in 91.871, it says, "In this section, accountable person in relation to an abandoned facility means all of the following persons unless excluded by regulation." And that, Chair, is the amendment, which I move.
I have reviewed the amendment from the minister and it is in order. I invite any member who would like to speak to the amendment to have that minister at this time. Recognizing member for Kelowna Mission.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to offer my gratitude to the minister for allowing the process and the rigor of this place in this House to give us the best legislation possible. And I appreciate that the minister, heard, both in the debate that was going on in this committee stage, as well as just in reflection after the fact, just some of the concerns that left to regulation could really leave ambiguity and a vagueness, and if not refined in regulation appropriately, could result in unintended consequences. And I truly believe that the intention, as stated by the minister, as we were going through these sections, was as stated. But having said that, I deeply appreciate that he heard and reflected and was willing to bring forward these amendments. At first glance, and I apologize at just getting it right now. I am looking at it, but it does seem to resolve the issue that we were debating last week. So I just wanted to again just extend my gratitude and there's a sense of just. Being pleased that democracy won on this one. So thanks.
See no further questions. Shall amendment pass? Aye. Shall Clause 3 as amended pass? Aye. No.
No, we're still in Clause 3.
Recognizing member.
Thank you so much. So carrying back over here, I noted that in the amendment, we have crossed out the person excluded by regulation and added it back into the subsection 2. Just wanted to clarify or confirm that the minister's intention on that was the same as previously canvassed, which was that a person would be, and I'd asked for an example in previous discussion, and that would be like the government would be a person that would be excluded. Was there anyone outside of that that I should be aware of, or does that clause not change any of the intention?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the amendment, and thank you to the member for the question, the amendment to the legislation in Clause 3 now very specifically excludes the government and excludes an employee with no beneficial or financial, sorry, I better make sure I've got the language exactly right, legal or beneficial interest. I can't think of anyone else at the moment or any other entity at the moment that might be excluded by regulation, but it is a standard piece of language that's put in legislation and to address something that may come up that is legitimate and therefore to be able to do it without requiring a return to the legislature.
Member.
Thank you, Chair. So under the definition for a specified facility, this seems to be left somewhat to regulation. And in the preliminary briefing with staff, we had canvassed this a little bit, and it was indicated that it could possibly apply to the forestry sector. Could the minister provide some direction as to what the prescribed industrial or commercial purposes or activities will be or won't be, and which will be or won't be included in future regulations?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So the Environmental Management Act, and this is a set of amendments to the Act, prohibits discharge of pollution to the environment unless an industrial facility prescribed under the waste discharge regulation has an active authorization. And therefore, the projects that would be in scope, specified facilities, would be those listed in the waste discharge regulation, recognizing that mining and oil and gas operations are already regulated under the Mines Act and the BC Energy Regulator under the Energy Resource Activities Act. It's not a completely exhaustive list, but some of the industries that might be covered would be smelting, chemical manufacturing, commercial waste management, mining, petroleum, well, some mining activities, petroleum refining, and pulp and paper mills.
Member.
Thank you, Minister, for the answer. Under 91.811, it says a director may order a responsible person to provide to the director information. Could the minister describe in what instances a director would not order a person to provide the information?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think this is fairly standard legal language in bills. It's permissive without being absolutely mandatory. So an example of where there might not be an order made would be for a low-risk industry where it just was not considered necessary. For an example would be agriculture.
Member.
Thank you. So in 91.812, it states that an order must be served on the responsible person. Does this mean that a single individual or entity will be designated as the responsible person regardless of ownership structures? Or given that there are potential financial implications, could the minister explain why it is at the person's own expense as opposed to the business?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I think the amendment that we just voted on would cover the member's concern in this regard, where it says a responsible person is not an employee of a responsible person if the employee has no legal or beneficial interest in the profits resulting from the activities taking place at the facility.
Member.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Minister. Could the Minister then just describe for me what the process is, or what the how the beneficial interest in the profits would be defined or allocated?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and I think we will actually probably address that in an amendment to Clause 4, but the regulation making, and maybe we should leave it to then, but I will simply repeat that regulation making power doesn't give Executive Council the ability to contravene clearly stated intent in the legislation. And the clear intent in the legislation here is to exclude people with no legal or beneficial interest in an enterprise. There may, in future, be some reason to define or narrow that further, which we can't contemplate. So when we get to Clause 4, we'll discuss that.
Member.
So I just in order to clarify, and I recognize that, and if this is dealt with in Clause 4, that's totally fine too, but I'm believing that what the minister is stating then is that beneficial interest isn't a promotion or a paycheck, but beneficial interest is more the being able to benefit from the overall asset. And I'll just clarify, you know, a person that is employed could have a profit sharing plan, but isn't necessarily involved or engaged in the ownership structure of the entity.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I think this question is better suited for Clause 4.
Member.
Holding me in suspense. All right, all right. I will wait to ask again then in that section. I will note for the minister that the recent legislation on the Landowner Transparency Act, recent 2019, actually has very clear definitions on beneficial ownership. So this takes us to a beneficial interest in the profits. So that's, you know, kind of the line of questioning. So I'll wait till Clause 4 to ask further on that. 91.82 begins with, and I quote, "subject to the regulations," end quote. What regulatory work does that refer to?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the regulation will be developed, and it will be developed in consultation, and it will be developed to ensure that that it is appropriate to and defines the circumstances in which action should be taken, or to define what needs to be contained in a decommissioning and closure plan, quite possibly in different circumstance.
Member.
So, to the minister, is this, then would this be the process still of engagement with industry as those regulations come to fruition?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Member.
So then per 91.821, what requirements or expertise will be required of those who will be required to produce the decommissioning and closure plans? And what criteria is going to be set for those who can credibly prepare those plans?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And upon royal assent to the Act, we will begin work of further consultation with industry and the public around the range of circumstances that are covered by this bill for which decommissioning and closure plans could be required. And we will consult with industry around what level of qualifications, or what specific, not level, what specific qualifications would be required for different types of decommissioning and closure plans, perhaps. There may be variance by sector, or there may not. But we will specify that ultimately in the regulation following consultation. And but the qualifications generally would be those possessed by a qualified professional.
Member.
Thank you, Chair. So what substances or things, and I'll leave that one alone just in the interest of time. So 91.821A, we have cause pollution. Could the minister give us is there a list of those specific aspects that would be included under 91.821A?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. The definition of pollution is found in the definitions of the Environmental Management Act as a whole, and the definition of pollution means the presence in the environment of substances or contaminants that substantially alter or impair the usefulness of the environment. So examples would be chemicals that are used in a particular process, byproducts of the industrial process, etc.
Member.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you, Chair. So in the same section, in the same subsection, under B, it's specified that, like, land is actually specified, but not water or groundwater. Would either be included as a result of subsection 1C as it relates to section 39(1) of the Act?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. The definition of contamination in 39(1) does include water. And I note that the hour, I move that the committee rise, report progress, and ask leave to sit again.
Members, the question is that the committee rise, report progress, and seek leave to sit again. Those in favor, indicate aye. Those opposed indicate nay. Motion is carried. The committee now stands adjourned.